everybody to the regular meeting of the Ames City Council for Tuesday night, April 27th. As again, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we are conducting this electronically, and you can access it via Zoom or on our YouTube channel or our cityofames.org/channel12 or on Mediacom channel 12. Details can be found on our city website. Tonight I have the pleasure of making 4 different proclamations, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first one, we have CEO of Prairie Medical Center, Brian Dieter, and Amber Deerdorf. I'll let you offer a few comments when I'm done reading the proclamation. This is for a moment of silence for first COVID-19 death at Mary Greeley Medical Center. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has had an unprecedented impact on the people of Ames and Story County, and whereas the pandemic has changed how each of us go about our daily lives, and whereas more than 11,000 Story County residents have tested positive for COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic, and whereas nearly 50 of these people have lost their lives to the virus, and many more face serious illness, extended hospitalization, and lasting health concerns. And whereas on May 4th, 2020, Mary Greeley Medical Center lost its first patient to COVID-19. And whereas to commemorate those lost to the virus, Mary Greeley will observe a 1-minute moment of silence on Thursday, May 4th at 1:30 p.m. And whereas all residents of Story County are invited to participate in this moment of silence, therefore, I, John A. Hala, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby proclaim a moment of silence for the first COVID-19 death at Mary Greeley Medical Center on May 4th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. and encourage all residents to participate in this moment of silence. Brian, Amber, do you wish to offer any comments?
I would. First of all, thank you. Very, very humbling. This actually started as just a way to recognize for our own internal staff, their own anxieties, the stress over the past year. Never dreamed of it growing to this level. When I took this idea to our community partners meeting about 2 weeks ago, I was just astounded by the level of engagement with that group and how many other businesses, community partners wanted to be a part of this moment of silence. So really, thank you for the proclamation. It's been a hard year for our staff, so I do encourage everyone, please take time on May 4th to recognize those lives lost to this pandemic. And we've all been stressed by it. We've all been impacted by COVID-19 in our own unique way. So take some time, May 4th and ongoing, to make sure that you can heal yourself as well. But thank you once again.
Brian, anything you want to add?
Well, Amber did a really great job, as has been the pattern for the last probably 15, 16 months as we've dealt with this. But we clearly have reestablished importance of many community connections, collaborations, and I think this community has shown tremendous resolve and resilience, and we really have come together to address so many factors. Clearly, our staff are tired, are weary, but they've been heroic, and we're appreciative of the proclamation there, and we do encourage all citizens to take a moment at 1:30 on the 4th of May, just to be mindful and certainly think of the families and the impact that this virus has had on certainly those that we've lost, but the survivors as well.
Well, thank you both, and I know that I speak on behalf of City Council. I think of all the Ames and Story County residents. Thank you for all that you have done, your staff, your leadership, Brian and Amber. I know you have countless hours put into it, but we are blessed beyond belief to have such a high quality medical facility and staff, and it's just it's a team effort. We know you have really been there from day one, but I think there needs to be some kind of way to, I think there's been some conversation about having some kind of a celebration. When this is truly all over, we're not out of the woods yet. I think we're making progress, but it's, I don't think any, I know I personally never had a doubt of if I had any issues where I was going to go, and knew I'd have the best of care. And so thank you for prevailing and for your leadership. So,
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next proclamation, which is Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the wind erosion of our topsoil, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide a habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are renewable resources that increase property values, enhance economic vitality and the business area, and beautify our community. Therefore, I, John A. Hela, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in Ames. I encourage residents to plant a tree, mulch existing trees, and protect our trees and woodlands by becoming good stewards of the land. Ames residents can receive a rebate for planting a native tree. Information can be found on the City of Ames website and the Smart Watersheds and Rebates area, and this seems especially appropriate given all the tree damage we sustained this past year due to the derecho. And I know, speaking personally, I had to replace a tree, and it's already planted and getting ready to leaf out. So to that end, Diane, you want to offer? I'm going to present this to you. We'll send you an original copy, and make a few comments on respect to Arbor Day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for making the proclamation. Arbor Day is this Friday, and in the past, Ames Trees Forever has had a voucher program, but with COVID, we're not able to do that. But as the mayor pointed out, there is a rebate on the Smart Watershed. That is good for up to 2 trees. The maximum allotment is $75, which would be a tree and a bag of mulch as well. So this is a great opportunity for people to replace trees that were either destroyed or damaged during the derecho, and also to continue to plant trees for our environment. So thank you very much for the proclamation.
Thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it. All right, the third proclamation is for Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health and substance abuse disorders affect all communities nationwide, especially during a pandemic. And whereas we reaffirm our commitment to building our understanding of these disorders, increasing access to treatment, and ensuring those who are struggling with mental health or substance abuse disorders are known they are not, to know that they are not alone. And whereas 2 in 5 adults and 1 in 5 children will experience a problem with mental health, but only 41% of these individuals will seek and receive treatment. And whereas over 22.5 million people suffer from a substance use disorder, but fewer than 10% of those individuals seek and receive treatment. And whereas despite great strides in our understanding of mental health and substance abuse disorders and the vast improvements that have been achieved in the dialogue surrounding them, too many people still suffer in silence. And whereas the focus of Mental Health Awareness Month this May is to spread the message that good mental health is essential to good overall health for each of us, that prevention works and that treatment is effective. Therefore, I, John A. Hela, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month, and I call upon the citizens of our community to help raise awareness of the importance of good mental health to the overall health of our community. There's also an item on our agenda this evening that will build upon that. So, Chief Huff, and I think I saw Julie. Do you have any comments to make regarding the proclamation today?
Thanks for having us tonight, and thanks for the proclamation. As we've heard already tonight, it's been a rough year for many of our residents. And I know at the police department, we've seen an increase in calls for service for mental health, substance abuse. And so I think this is a really good time for us all to take a step back and look for those services that are available and make sure that we're doing some self-care and we're caring for each other. And I'm sure Julie has a few things to say too, because she works very closely in this world.
Yeah, thank you again for making this proclamation. And like Jeff said, we definitely are seeing an influx of mental health calls. Again, with substance abuse, we're seeing a lot of influx of those calls as well. Quite a few individuals are suffering from the trauma of COVID. And we know that once we can all kind of take a breath here, that, 6 to 9 months from now, we're really going to see, more of a surge. And to be able to create this awareness and hopefully educate our community to be able to look for signs and symptoms and be able to respond appropriately, hopefully we can bring down those numbers. So thank you very much.
Chief and Julie, thank you for all your efforts. We know it's a yeoman's task, and I trust you'll be available also during item number 39, which is coming up on the agenda tonight, to answer any questions council might have. And for those who may be watching and interested, there will be some more conversation about mental health a little later on in the meeting under item 39. Okay, we can move on to our fourth proclamation tonight, and that's Historic Preservation Month. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustaining development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas historic preservation is inherently economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable, fostering a culture of reuse and maximizing the life cycle of all resources throughout conservation. And whereas heritage is a full range of our inherited traditions, monuments, objects, and culture. Most important, it is a range of contemporary activities, meanings, and behaviors that we draw from them. Therefore, I, John A. Halen, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby recognize May 2021 as National Historic Preservation Month and proclaim the month of May 2021 as Ames Historic Preservation Month, and call upon the people of Ames to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing this special observance. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, and this is a very exciting and joyful time. Last year, this was not able to be held. We were in the initial throes of COVID-19, and so we have 4 honorees tonight to receive Historic Preservation Awards. So the Ames Historic Preservation Commission's Preservation Awards program annually recognizes historic preservation activities within Ames. The program is intended to not only highlight and honor these efforts, but to also promote and encourage future preservation. 4 award winners are being recognized tonight, representing a 2-year period, both for 2020 and 2021. Last year's winners were never formally recognized due to COVID. And so I believe that, do we have a representative from AVEC Design Build with us tonight? I think we should.
We do.
Very good. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share some details, and then let you offer any comments if you'd like. In the category of historic rehabilitation for 2020, we recognize AVEC Design Build for the commercial building at 131 Main Street. I believe that there are 3 slides that will showcase the gorgeous work that was done there. Under this historic rehabilitation, it involves repairing and or altering a building or a feature of a building so the structure has the appearance such that a building would have had 50 or more years ago, based on historic documentation for similar buildings of that time in Ames. This rehabilitation usually involves A, removing later work and repairing or reconstructing a distinctive feature or features of the building that may have been removed or substantially altered, and or B, repairing one or more distinctive features that remain intact on the building. When AVEC Holdings purchased the commercial building in 2017 at 131 Main, it was in a complete state of disrepair and water intrusion had deteriorated the north wall. Changes had occurred to the facade that were inconsistent with its character and history. AVEC applied for historic tax credits. The rehabilitation had to follow strict standards and guidelines established by the Secretary of the Interior, with the period of significance being 1953. Deteriorated areas were repaired and windows and doors were returned to the original opening sizes and materials. The original glass block was uncovered, cleaned, and sealed along with the yellow brick. An aluminum awning similar in size to the 1953 version, yet with a touch of the contemporary, was installed at the south and west facades, once again emphasizing the southwest corner entry of the building. I'd like to congratulate AVEC Design Build for your outstanding work and award in historic rehabilitation. And we do have a plaque that we'll see to it that gets to you. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to present it to you in person at City Hall if you want to do any photo op and anything else for publicity's sake. Otherwise, if we were in person, we'd be doing that right now. So Jason and Liz, congratulations. Do you have any comments? Your work is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It was a real honor to receive this. We truly loved working on this historic building and restoring some of the things like you see behind us, the limestone foundation wall. It's a wonderful environment to be in, and we truly enjoy being part of the downtown area.
How long have you been in the building?
2 years.
Wow.
It's gone quickly.
Yes, it does. Jason, anything you want to add?
No.
All right. Thank you very much
Thanks,
for coming. Congratulations again. The next award is going to be the category of adaptive reuse for 2020. And we recognize Ryan and Sonia Newstrom for Cornbread Barbecue located at 526 Main Street. Do we have someone present to receive the award tonight? I'm not sure if we did or not. Adaptive reuse recognizes retention of the principal features of a building and, in a sympathetic way, modifying it for modern uses. Changes are not required to be strictly consistent with the original appearance of the modified building or of other historic buildings constructed at the same time period. The Cornbread building was built in 1900. The former Chicago and Northwestern Passenger Depot had seen a range of commercial tenants since the rail service ceased in the 1960s. In 2018, new tenants, Ryan and Sonia Newstrom, contracted with Dan Utini, John Lott, and Cassie Bergeson to combine and convert two separate and distinct tenant spaces into a bustling restaurant and bar space. The team looked for opportunities to expose original elements in the building, including the double vaulted waiting room and original wood and brick that has been covered up. Recognizing the potential of the space, a mezzanine level was created to provide an increased amount of seating while creating a sense of drama around the station and entrance. Congratulations to Cornbread Barbecue for your 2020 award in adaptive reuse and bringing new life to the depot. Also in the category for adaptive reuse for 2021, we recognize OEI Ames LLC for their building located at 319-321 Main Street. And I believe Dan O, on behalf of OEI, is present tonight to receive the award.
Yep, we're right here, Mayor.
Great, thanks, Dan. After acquiring the commercial building at 319-321 Main Street in 2019, OEI Ames LLC retrofitted historic building for modern use. OEI completed historically appropriate restoration of the Main Street facade, including tuck pointing, masonry and terracotta tile repairs, a new upper story paired window replicating historically accurate muttons. Important to the building's design is the texture provided by the variegated brick color, cast concrete material, brickwork details, and tile roof. The deteriorated upper story apartment was remodeled to an open floor plan with updated infrastructure and reinforced rafters and restoration of the original flooring. Thank you to OEI Ames LLC for your efforts in bringing high quality residential living to downtown Ames, and congratulations on your 2021 award for adaptive reuse. It's beautiful, Dan. It's amazing what you've transformed inside and out.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so Lori and I, my wife Lori, are delighted to be able to help improve our thriving downtown. And it's really going in a great direction and has been for years. And I love seeing what others are doing. The awards right before us are pretty awesome, and encourage others to do the same. We had great local contractors involved, and look forward to doing more of this in the future. So thank you. It's something we appreciate.
Thank you, Dan. And same offer goes to you. If you'd like to stop by, we'll make arrangements to give you a plaque when we can make that arrangements for both of our schedules.
Well, you should be careful, because I think there'll probably be about 20 folks who want to be in that photo with you. So we'll bring them over.
We'll make that work.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Mayor, John, I think Dan Nutini is now a panelist instead of just an attendee for the Cornbread Award.
Okay. Well, back up. Sorry, Dan. Thank you, Gloria, for bringing it to my attention. Dan, do you want to make a comment or two?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Dan, hi.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Hela. I just want to say on behalf of the planning and design team, Nutini Architecture, Casey Burgess, and Interior Design and Benjamin Design Collaborative, we'd just like to congratulate Ryan and Sonia Newstrom on this award and for their continuous vision to invest and enhance downtown Ames. Congratulations to Ryan and Sonia and the entire Cornbread team. It was a pleasure working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful work. Okay, the last one is going to Angie and Dan Coles. I hope I said that correctly. I think that is Angie available?
Hi, Mayor.
Hi, Angie. Great, good. And did I say your last name correctly? I apologize if I didn't.
Absolutely.
All right, good.
Fair.
So in conclusion, in the category Historic Rehabilitation for 2021, we recognize Angie and Dan Coles for the residents of 802 Burnett Avenue. The single-family home at 802 Burnett dates back to 1910 and was constructed in the Queen Anne style. In 2017, new owners, Angie and Dan Coles, began hours of investigative research. Historically minded repairs took 3 years to complete. Every element of this home's rehabilitation has its own story as to how it was successfully implemented. Particularly significant to the character of the historic district was the rehabilitation of the wraparound porch. The existing porch had become structurally unsound and was no longer accurate to its original style. The entry gable, which was an important historic feature of the home, was able to be structurally supported and repaired while the porch was being demolished and new brick piers and skirtings matching the original were added. Painstaking research and implementation has resulted in successful rehabilitation of this 1910 home. I'd like to congratulate Angie and Dan for enhancing our Old Town Historic District and on receiving the 2021 award for historic rehabilitation. Congratulations, and we wish to offer any comments on your 3 years of labor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I would just say that I think this was a big project for us, and the support and participation from our neighbors and city staff and the planning inspections giving thoughts and input through this process. It was very sustaining, and we love our neighborhood, and it was all worth it. So we appreciate this recognition, and a lot of people helped work on this project as well, and this is just great. So thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. We'll make sure we can make arrangements to get plaque to you and your husband as well, and hopefully in a date in the very near future. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. All right, before we move on into consent, I want to just take because on consent is approving our new ex officio. And Nicole, you made comments in the last meeting, but on behalf of council, thank you for all of your hard work and efforts representing the student body as ex officio. And I would invite you, if you want to make any closing comments, and then you can introduce Trevor, and then we'll move on to consent and have him approved.
All right. Well, I've loved my time being on council. It was really, really fun. I learned a lot. And actually, it was one of the things that inspired me to apply for law school this fall. So I'll be headed to law school in August, and hopefully a lot of this is going to help me there. For Trevor, he's a junior at Iowa State for a management information system, so a lot different than me being an elementary education major, but still just as qualified to do this. He was the vice president of the election commission at Iowa State, now doing this, and is actually my partner. So he's actually sat through a lot of these meetings off camera, coincidentally. So he kind of knows how it goes already.
All right. Well, Trevor, I'm going to assume, just kidding, that consent agenda will go through without any kind of issue. And we'll allow you to introduce yourself under council comments and tell us about yourself. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. Welcome. And again, Nicole, thank you so much for your efforts. And we wish you success in law school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, move on to consent. Council, does anyone wish to pull any item from consent this evening? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion approving consent.
Move consent.
Second. All right, moved by Gloria, seconded by Rachel. Thank you. Roll call.
Etcher.
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Corriere.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Edie Hansen.
Aye.
All right, Trevor, you're officially ex officio. Welcome aboard. All right, we're going to move on to public forum. This is time we set aside for comments from the public on topics of city business, other than those listed on the agenda this evening. It's our preference to limit the comments to 3 minutes or less, if at all possible. So I declare public forum to be open. Is there anyone who wishes to address council this evening?
Mayor, I see a hand raised from Merlin Foncook.
Very good.
Merlin, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm Merlin Foncook, 1424 Kellogg Avenue. We blunder along with development in Ames, whereas taxpayers subsidize the development. Why? We have the East Industrial Area, the proposed Reinvestment District, which is integral to the latest indoor aquatic center idea. You wiped out the requirement that the owner of the land where Wolford hoped to build his mall must pay for a sanitary sewer main under I-35. I'm concerned with the increasing influence Dan Culhane and the AEDC seem to have. And I presume it's Chuck Winkelblock from Hunziker Companies and others who so far are asking for an unreasonable tax increment financing amount to develop what would help pay for the aquatic center in this reinvestment.
Excuse me, Merlin, we lost your audio. Merlin, would you like to continue? We lost your audio.
There, I should be back.
Yes, you are now. Thank you. You may continue.
Why can't the council examine proposals more closely? I realize the investment district proposal was put together in a hurry. But for 5 years, I've been asking you to take a good look at the East Industrial Area. Culhane essentially says if we build it, the industries will come. Maybe, maybe not. You are planning to let this infrastructure project out for bid shortly without ever looking at this closely, with about $3.5 million eventually coming from our sanitary sewer and water payments. And that still isn't going to get the infrastructure to Verbio's plant. That will cost more than another $1 million. Another $1 million has been spent on engineering. I told you December 8th about all the cities in Iowa who are developing these certified sites. Yet an Iowa Department of Economic Authority staffer confirmed again last week that IDEA has no overview data on how successful these sites have been. It has only anecdotal evidence. Why don't you direct someone on city staff to spend a half day calling these cities and ask them about their sites? I'd do it, except it's not my job, and you never seem to take what I say seriously anyway. Then there's the Reinvestment District. The community has no real idea of what is going on here. It's too complicated. The developer and owners of this property are starting with a request for a $25 million in tax increment finance. They want us to help pay for parking. That $25 million is more than the consultant's optimistic revenue projection from the district. Get real. Why don't we just have another bond referendum on a pared down proposal? Maybe even this one for an aquatic center. We possibly could even have a vote before the IDEA gives final approval for Reinvestment District projects in February. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't see any other hands raised.
All right, thank you. We're going to close public forum, move on to item number 38, resolution awarding contract to Sustainability Solutions Group Workers Cooperative for the Climate Action Plan. Deb.
Well, good evening, Council. Tonight we're presenting to you the contract for the development of a climate action plan. This is a very important step as it's one of Council's sustainability goals and it's the first plan of its kind for the community. We are recommending the firm Sustainability Solutions Group Workers Cooperative, or SSG for short, to lead us through the planning process for the next 18 months. The Council Action Form outlines the process that was followed in ultimately selecting SSG. SSG's proposal includes two subcontractors, What If Technologies and Confluence. What If Technologies will do the data collection and provide energy and emissions modeling as well as financial and economic modeling. Confluence, which is a familiar organization to the city, will be involved with the development and facilitation of community engagement and outreach activities. Council has emphasized all along the need for public engagement and participation in this project. SSG has a pre-engagement preparation phase that will interview key groups in order to make sure the sectors of the community are identified and how best to reach each and every sector. Included in this pre-engagement phase will be a review of the information and application that staff brought forward to Council for the makeup of the community input group. This was discussed at the February 23rd Council meeting. It's also important to stress that the community input group is not the only way for public participation and feedback. Additional opportunities will include town hall meetings, online tools and activities, and surveys. Pages 4 and 5 of the Council Action Form outline SSG's scope of work, the proposed project timeline, including the meetings they will have with the steering committee. These meetings are touch points throughout the process and give Council a chance to review and provide direction and feedback to SSG as the process moves forward. I think at this time, Mayor, I'll conclude with those comments and open it up for questions from Council. And we also have with us in the meeting, Mary Rankin, Kaylee Lane, and Susan Guiazda, and they're part of the project team.
Council, questions for any of the four of them?
I have a question/comment on this. I think this is a solid proposal. I'm pleased with it. One of the things that caught my eye was the observation that SSG will be doing all of their work, all their interactive work virtually rather than in person, except for possibly one meeting at the end. Now, I understand Confluence is a local firm and they're going to specialize in outreach. So we will have good community outreach, but I guess I would, I know staff will be paying attention to this. If you think it becomes a problem that we only have virtual connections to SSG, then I'd really encourage you to let council know. I don't think there's any chance in going deeper into it until staff gets a sense that there might be something there. But I really want to see this work, and if that becomes an issue that council can help solve, I really hope you'll let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim.
I have a question. So for the committee, I was curious if you had a chance to review some of the climate action plans that this group has worked on in perhaps communities that are similar in size to Ames. And if you have any comments for us about the observations you made about those climate action plans.
Yeah, as part of the proposal, a response to to our RFP, they did provide a list of other communities that they've worked with, and to what degree those were climate action plans or other types of plans. Primarily, so SSG is headquartered in British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia, and the majority of their work has been done within the Canadian provinces. They are in the process of working on climate action plans in Tacoma, Washington, and Clackamas County, Oregon, which is Oregon City. And so we were able to reach out to references and talk to them about the work they're doing with SSG. And then in reviewing plans that SSG has been involved with, I think Canada in general has been ahead of us in climate action planning, and I think that's of value to us as a community, with this being our first action plan. But I will turn it over to Susan and Mary or Kaylee if they would like to weigh in on the interactions we've had with SSG and their work.
Well, I would just add that I think something that came out in talking to the various references was the diversified and really robust community engagement that they felt that SSG had led and that had gathered that went into the final plan for their community. You know, that really allowed their community to feel they were embracing it. They felt that ownership, and they were excited and moving forward. That specifically, it was noted the thing like the kitchen workbook, table workbooks, just some really creative pieces that we thought would really help to engage, the entirety of our community in different ways. As families, as maybe individuals that wouldn't take part in some of the other, community touch points. And so, and we heard that same sort of feedback, I think, in those references as well.
Great, thank you.
Tim, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's helpful. So I've looked at probably a dozen different climate action plans in the last several years. And it's surprisingly, they vary quite a bit. One would think that there would be really only a handful of ways in which you could really move the needle, but there's really quite a bit of variety, I think, in these. And so that was helpful to get your feedback as far as your sort of due diligence you've done. So thanks for your help with that.
And Tim, I think you bring up a really good point, and that is tailoring a plan to the needs of a community. It's not necessarily an off-the-shelf kind of plan that we're looking for. We really want to know what the needs are here, and that there's a thorough assessment and the opportunity for the input from the steering committee and the community to really tailor the best plan possible. So I think that's a very important aspect to point out.
Deb, can you comment on your staff report talking about their experience working with university communities also?
Yeah, so the Clackamas County, Oregon, so both Tacoma and Oregon City are much larger than Ames. I mean, hundreds of thousands. I think Tacoma was well over 200,000, and Oregon City and then Tacoma was over 400,000. So small universities and colleges in those particular communities, and then all throughout the communities in Canada that they've worked with. And they see the value of including the universities. Now, please keep in mind that this particular climate action plan isn't necessarily being adopted by Iowa State University, but we have them involved as a partner in this project because of their presence in our community. And it helps greatly with Mary's dual role with the university and the city, and then all of her connections with the university. And the students, as we discussed at the February 23rd council meeting, making sure that not only Iowa State administration is involved, but we've got the involvement of Iowa State students. And that's given that we're kicking this project off in May and we're going to have that quiet time during the summer, that's when SSG will be doing their evaluation and analysis of our greenhouse gas inventory and other pieces of information. So by the time the students get back, and we'll be able to get them engaged and be a part of the process as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll open up public comment. Is there anyone that wants to address council on this particular topic tonight?
Mayor, I don't see any hands raised.
All right, we will close public comment. Council, for discussion, questions, or entertain a motion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah. If I can just add one thing, I was just taking a look at this right before the council meeting here, and I know that the SSG is not registered as a foreign corporation with the Iowa Secretary of State's office, and that just provides for a registered agent in Iowa for service if there's litigation and some other things. But I think it would be a good idea just to make approval contingent upon them registering as a foreign corporation with the Secretary of State's office. It's not an involved process and not very expensive, but I think it's a legal step that they ought to take before we enter, actually finalize the contract, have you sign it. So.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the inputs, and maybe we'll rely on you to help us with the wording when that motion comes.
Are we ready for one?
Yes.
I would move alternative 1 to approve the award of contract Sustainability Solutions Group Workers Cooperative of Vancouver, BC, for a climate action plan in the amount not to exceed $120,915, contingent upon them registering with the Secretary of State's office as a foreign corporation.
Very good. All right, moved by Ronwin, second by Rachel, and Mark gives his 2 thumbs up. Good job, Ronwin. Thank you. Any further discussion or comments?
I just have one question. Is this the right amount that we've got in that motion? Because I know.
Thank you, Gloria. Deb, you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So the amount in the contract is correct. The $120,915. In Appendix A, under the scope of services, the cost of services needs to be changed from $129,500 to $120,915.
Thank you, Deb.
Yep, thank you.
And this is probably just procedural, but that's in US dollars.
Yes.
All right, roll call.
Garten.
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Corriere.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Edie Hansen.
Aye.
Betcher.
Aye.
Well, Mary, Kaylee, and Susan and Deb, thank you very much. Exciting new chapters starting here in our community, and we're looking forward to getting started. And I have to say that I was very impressed with the robust community engagement. They certainly listened. You listened in terms of crafting the RFP, and they certainly apparently listened to what was being expected. So we're looking forward to getting a lot of input over the next 18 months, or probably 12 months while they wrap the program up. So thank you so much for coming and your labors in this regard. So, all right, item 39, Mental Health, Wellness, Recovery, and Resiliency Initiative. Deb, I believe that Jeff and our Chief Huff and Julie is on also.
All right, great. So earlier in the meeting, we heard the mayor read the Mental Health Awareness Proclamation for the month of May. And so to keep on that theme, we're looking at pulling together a mental health wellness, recovery, and resiliency initiative. And this was in response to the mayor's request to take a look at some kind of a concept that where we're focusing on mental health, especially in light of COVID-19. We heard and read, and maybe we know somebody personally that's really been impacted by the pandemic. And so as a city, we want to be able to provide some information and resources for people to help one another through this. A lot of times in disasters, the emotional piece of it comes after the disaster and lasts much longer in the recovery process. So I don't think the pandemic is any different than that. And so what we're looking at doing is starting in May, and we have a specific date because we had to reserve City Auditorium. We're looking at Thursday, May 20th, from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. In providing a mental health forum, a public forum open to anybody who wishes to attend. And we will have a keynote speaker, and then we'll have a panel of individuals, some representing our partners from the Ames School District, Iowa State, and local mental health agencies to talk about what they have available as resources. And then we'll have, we're leaving ample time for Q&A so people can attend in person. We will be abiding by social distancing regulations as well as the mask ordinance. But then we're also going to live stream it on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll take questions through those platforms and post those to the panel as well. So that's in May. And then we will be doing a series of mental health first aid training with our very own Julie Saxton leading that effort, and she can talk a little bit about that. And then come September, which is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, we'll end this initiative with dovetailing on the Mental Health Expo that's already planned for. That's a virtual event again this year. And then possibly another training on suicide prevention. So I'll turn it over to Julie if she'd like to talk a little bit about mental health first aid.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. So mental health first aid is an 8-hour course that covers mental health diagnosis and symptoms, so what to look for and how to appropriately respond to someone that may be experiencing onset of mental health issues or even a mental health crisis. And typically, I teach this, by the way, with Kinsey Phillips, the mental health advocate, Iowa State Police Department. And typically, we will have 2 days, break that up into 4 hours because the material is quite heavy. But we can do an 8-hour course as well. But this would be something for our community to be able to become educated. And it would be free. Typically, it is about $250 per person, but we have been able to put this on for free. The city has paid for the materials in the past. Iowa State will also contribute. So again, no cost to our community, but a great opportunity like I said, for our community to become educated, given the influx, like I talked about in mental health calls and our substance abuse calls. We need to come together as a community to, to prevent what I would call, mental health crisis. And this would give, like I said, an opportunity for our community to come together and become educated and learn how to respond appropriately. And we would also talk about the appropriate resources in our community that we could help folks get connected with.
Thank you, Julie. Chief, do you have anything you want to add?
I just really quickly add that, this is what we're good at, getting a lot of people together to collaborate to solve problems. We use this approach with the opioid task force. Before that problem hit our community, we got the right people together at the table to figure out how we were going to combat it. And I think we were pretty successful. And this really follows that same kind of format where we're going to provide a lot of information. We're going to provide some training, and we're going to tell people where they can go for services so they can help themselves as well. So we're really fortunate to have Julie on staff who can teach this class along with Kinsey from Iowa State. Some things came together rather quickly, and kudos to Deb and Julie both for doing the lion's share of the work of putting this together in a rather short period of time. So thank you, and we appreciate the time.
Questions for Julie, Deb, or Chief Huff?
I don't so much have a question, it's more of an observation. Teaching at Iowa State, I am getting contacted by my students regularly about their declining mental health, the challenges that they're facing because of feeling isolated. And so I don't doubt that the situation is going to get worse. And I guess maybe there is a question here. Many of my students can't really focus very well on their self-care right now. But the semester is going to end at the beginning of May, and we still will have many students staying in town for summer jobs. And is this something that we are going to be advertising well for students who might want to attend or who may want to tune in via Facebook or YouTube? Because I think there are many people who could benefit from that. I'm also hearing from a lot of veterans and their families who are particularly impacted.
So Gloria, yes, it is open to anybody and everybody, and it's not age specific. We know that mental health issues affect people of all ages, and so we definitely include the Iowa State students. In fact, earlier today, we talked with Susan Diaz about promoting this upcoming event in May. And after tonight's meeting, we're going to get a save the date card and information out so that people can get this on their calendars and start planning on it. So we want to advertise it heavily and hopefully have a substantial attendance, whether it's virtual or in person.
Right, and Kinsey and I are planning on a couple dates in June, July, and August. And she will do a great job of getting the word out on campus. So again, we're very excited to offer this class to all community members and our Iowa State students. Also, Deb mentioned the Mental Health Expo that will be in September. And that is a great time, again, to offer those Iowa State students the opportunity to participate in mental health first aid. And so we will be talking about that before the expo, during the expo, and then give those students the opportunity to, sign up after the expo as well. So it will be, we'll get the word out there for sure.
Great, thank you very much.
Julie, can you just comment too on just the partnership or interaction with the school districts also in terms of how, it's a good, a very appropriate observation, Gloria, and it's something that I think sometimes doesn't get talked enough about, and that is mental health. We talk about all kinds of other maladies that we may have, but mental health for some reason seems to kind of either not get much attention. And it's not just Iowa State, it's not just in our community, in our school system. So can you just comment on that and just I'm honestly extremely excited about this. I think it's going to be a good start of a conversation that needs to happen. It's not just a conversation on what's going on. It's also, here's some hopeful opportunities for some training to help people. It's a practical way of moving forward, not just saying, hey, we got a problem and wring your hands and not do anything about it. But keep comment on the school districts, and it's both Ames and Gilbert too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, just across the board, I talked about this the last couple of weeks. That our students are really struggling, elementary, middle school through high school. Reacclimating back into the classroom has been very difficult. We see a lot of kids, like you talked about with Iowa State students, they're isolating. Self-care is not on the top of the list. A lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. And I have talked to a lot of parents that are very, very concerned. I collaborate with a lot of the guidance counselors and social workers with Ames Community School District and with Gilbert. And they're working tirelessly to try to get those students connected with those resources. Lots of team meetings with teachers, social workers, parents, and our SROs as well. They do a great job, working with these kiddos that are struggling and forming those really important relationships. But yeah, we're seeing a great influx of concerns with those children and their families. So
we do anticipate probably having on the panel maybe some representatives from school district too. Is that right? Or
yes, I've invited Brian Kirko to be part of the panel discussion. Yes.
So my understanding is we're trying to capture, the whole cross section of our community, from the university to K-12 to others. And so for those who may not be aware, this opioid task force, I think it was in 2018, I think is when it was held, but we actually had in council chambers, it was overflowing. It overflowed into the courtroom behind. It was in the hallways. I mean, we had people from all different walks of life, all different ages that were coming. And we really hope that people will become informed, and also become informed of the resources and the fact that we're here to work together as a community. So I really applaud. It's a hard job. Yeah, Julie and all the law enforcement dealing with, I think a lot of your calls are mental health, right? Also.
Yes.
Yeah. So the point being is that we want to do something positive and move forward. And I know that this is a priority of councils. I know it's a priority of our staff, but I want to bring it to your attention. So, and also look for your support. So, any other questions for Chief, Julie, or Deb? Thank you all for the presentation. So tonight, council, we're asking for your approval to direct staff to develop an initiative supporting the mental health, wellness, recovery, and resiliency, offering education, training, and resource opportunities to the public, and also separately a resolution to approve up to $5,000 from our council contingency to help fund or cover the costs associated with this initiative. So I'd entertain, there's no further questions, there's interest in a motion directing staff to develop this initiative.
I have one further question, and that's related to alternative one. The $5,000 that we would be asked to approve, we have a note on that saying, well, we might need more. We don't know how many materials we'll have to produce. I'm just wondering if that has to come back to council again, if we need more than $5,000, and if that needing to come back is causing a problem at all.
Steve, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think if we do good planning, we'll be able to determine if the interest is higher, and we can come back to the council. I don't think it'll be a problem.
Thanks. In that case, I would move alternative one.
Okay, which includes, so we're going to need is, if you wouldn't mind, Gloria, we need a motion to direct staff to develop the initiative. Then we'll have a separate motion. There'll be a roll call vote on the resolution.
All right, then I would move that we direct staff to develop an initiative supporting mental health, wellness, recovery, and resiliency, offering education, training, and resource opportunities to the public.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Bronwyn, thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. And then, Corey, you want to proceed with the second one?
Sure. I would move that we approve up to $5,000 in council contingency funds to help cover the costs associated with this initiative. And if the costs are more, that staff come back to us.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Bronwyn, thank you. Roll call.
Junk,
Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Beatty Hansen,
Aye.
Betcher,
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Chief, Julie, and Deb for your efforts regarding this. We'll look forward to hearing more. And that's, again, Thursday, May 20th, 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Oh, and just for information, how are people going to find out about that more, Deb? Can you kind of just talk about that just for a second, real quick?
Yeah, yep. So we'll work with Susan in doing a press release and pushing it out on the Facebook pages, the other social media platforms, our website, and we'll have cards that we can distribute and people can take some and pass them around. We'll also get out to the schools. That's kind of the beauty of doing this in May, is that the schools are still in session. So we'll get the information out so they can include that with other materials that go home with students.
I presume on our website too, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 40, contract with Enviro Services and Constructors regarding a waste to energy option study. Brian?
Actually, I think John Joyner and Don Com are going to provide the background on this item.
Very good. John and Don.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Brian. Just to recap where we've been and the results of our request for proposals and the process that we went through with that. Again, as a reminder, on December 8th of 2020, City Council approved the draft scope of services for the waste to energy options study. And at the heart of that study was full evaluation of 5 core options. So that would involve capital costs, operating needs, operating costs, environmental impacts, neighborhood impacts. So really a full evaluation of these 5 core options. So these 5 core options begin with, in essence, an evaluation of our as-is condition, the current operating procedures. Then the next pair would involve retrofitting the power plant to have a standalone RDF unit. And the first one of those 2 options would be looking at a traditional refuse-derived fuel like we produce now. The second of those would look at a modified RDF that would really have more of just a rough primary shred that would possibly enable us to still recycle the materials at the front end, but maybe lower the operating costs in getting the RDF product to the power plant. Then the second pair of options would involve constructing a standalone RDF unit in either a brownfield setting or a greenfield setting, somewhere new. So that the first of those 2 options, again, would be a traditional RDF type unit. And then the second one would be more of just a rough mass processing unit. So those were the 5 core options that we presented in our request for proposals. On January 4th, the RFP was sent out to 32 firms and 3 contractor clearinghouses, and we ended up receiving 8 proposals. So those proposals were evaluated by a team of 3 electric staff, 2 public works, and Brian from the city manager's office. And again, working closely with purchasing. So we evaluated those 8 proposals. We shortlisted 4 firms and invited them in for really an extensive interview process that also included tours of the power plant and the resource recovery plant. So we spent a whole afternoon visiting with each one of those 4 firms to learn more about their capabilities and their approach to this study. So through all of that, RRT rose to the top. So RRT has done work with us before. It was very apparent that they put a lot of work, a lot of background, a lot of preparation into the proposal, into the interview process, into the team that they developed. And they have a lot of experience in similar settings, a lot of operational experience. So they bring a lot of practicality to the study. And then Curtis Spence and Bill Schmidt then did an extensive background check on RRT, checking references. And all those really came back, you could even say glowing, just nothing but good responses from the previous clients that they visited with. So RRT's proposal would be to really get started as soon as possible. And then in going through the process, it would culminate with a presentation to City Council, probably in November, of their final study. And then any recommendations, direction that we would have them from City Council, that would give us time to evaluate putting that in the draft operating budget or draft capital improvement plan for the coming years. And then one of the items earlier tonight was the climate action plan. So as we go through this process, we'll stay in close coordination with that development of the climate action plan as well. So I believe Don is on here as well. If there's anything else that I missed, anything else that he wants to add, Curtis and Bill are also on here. If you have any questions about the references, any questions about RRT or the process that we have coming up.
Thank you, John, for a good recap. Council questions for John or Curtis, Bill, or Don?
I have one question. Going back to when we first approved the RFP, we had a discussion about should we be looking at options other than waste to energy? And the response was that we want to make sure the contractor recognizes that they could make alternative recommendations for options that may be more in line with the climate action plan or something else that they discover along the way. Is it clear that RRT is willing to do that?
Yeah, we talked with all the firms during the interview process about that possibility and their capabilities of doing that. And the scope that RRT has and the fee that they proposed includes some headroom, if you will, for an alternative option that we maybe don't have identified right now. So as we work through that process, as we stay in coordination, they do have it built in to look at another alternative option.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, oh, Don, did you have something you want to add?
Yes, there was. Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things I wanted to mention that through that interview process, there were really a couple of key things that were important to us. We wanted to make sure that we found a firm or firms that were knowledgeable both in waste to energy or the generation side, but also knew how to deal with municipal solid waste. RRT brought that talent with them. Some of the other entities that we interviewed either were strong on the generation energy side or they were strong on the waste. So RRT had that skill set. The other thing that was valuable to us was to make sure that the entities had worked on projects of similar size to what Ames is. And there were some that were real experienced in the very, very large systems or the very, very small systems or had done something smaller. RRT again had experience in communities that were of similar size to Ames. So we felt a comfort there that they understood our unique challenges and our unique requirements in looking at a study like this. So I just wanted to bring up those two additional points.
Thank you. I can open up to public input. Is there anyone that wants to address council this evening on this particular topic?
I don't see any hands raised.
All right, we'll close public input. Further questions or comments or discussion?
I'm pleased with the number of consultants that responded to the RFP. With something that's sort of niche like this, sometimes we don't get very many responses. So I think that's very encouraging, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness with which these different proposals were evaluated. So very excited about this.
Okay, I entertain a motion.
I'll move alternative 1.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Prairie,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Beatty Hansen,
Aye.
Betcher,
Aye.
Garten,
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Thank you, staff, for all your extensive efforts, and look forward to seeing that proceed and results that are coming in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on now. Item number 41, joint use parking plan for 414 Lincoln Way and 119 Washington Avenue. Kelly? Kelly, we don't have any audio feed from you.
All right. I have audio now, correct?
Yes, you are. Can you start over again, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. So tonight I have to give you a little bit of an update on the project compared to how it was described on Friday. When staff had been working with the applicant, we had been working from some earlier conversations that the proposal was really, for the most part, an accessory function to the funeral home's operation to allow for events related to the funeral itself. After preparing the report and reviewing the easement agreement that we sent to you on Friday, we had further discussions with the attorney and the applicant, and we came to a different understanding of how they had proposed this. They had proposed this really as an independent banquet hall facility on the 119 Washington Avenue site that may at times work in conjunction with the funeral home, but it isn't necessarily tied to that as an accessory function. So the materials that we provided you in terms of the findings were really based on the idea that it was an accessory use. There would only be 12 days a month that the banquet hall could operate, and it would be for limited hours. After talking with the property owner today, it was actually much different situation than how we had understood it. It's really the funeral home is proposed to operate with its peak events, which would be funerals or visitations, things that have a larger number of people assembling on the site. It itself would be limited to 12 times a month, and that the banquet hall could operate many more days of the month and in the hours that are not limited as a funeral function. So staff doesn't believe the agreement that we attached to this really clearly explains that and defines those issues. I think at this point, after talking with the applicant, staff believes that with the understanding of the funeral operation being limited for those high visitation events, which would be generally in excess of 10 people on site on a normal day-to-day basis, normal office staff and visitors and customers would be there. But when they're hosting something that's a larger assembly of people, they would actually be limited then to a maximum of 12 per month. And again, for about a 3-hour duration. And the funeral home operator has described that those 3-hour visitation attributes really kind of happen either in a morning session, a noon session, or an evening session. And one of the requirements for you to approve joint use parking is to understand that there's a clear distinction in demand for peak demand of the uses, and that there rarely would be overlap of that demand. So the applicant has, as we now understand it, and as they've proposed it, is that essentially the banquet hall facility will not operate at those times when the funeral operations or the funeral visitation activities are happening on the site. And there would be a potential conflict then with those hours that are stated. So although that staff did not prepare the council action form with that description, staff has an understanding now of the project that's a lot clearer. We think that if council wanted to move forward in giving direction on how to approve this request, it could under alternative moving up here to alternative 2 with some modifications, that the agreement be modified to reflect this understanding that there would not be a conflict between the uses, and that this would need to be done before the mayor could sign that agreement and authorize that easement to be recorded. If there's still confusion or it's really a lack of clarity in how these two uses can work together, then it would probably be more appropriate to table the item to May 11th and have us continue to work with the applicant to update the agreement. So for us as staff, we apologize about the difference in understanding of what was proposed as we got to the final stages of this. But I think at this point, we do understand the differences here. Essentially, the funeral home is limiting itself to allow for the banquet hall to have as many opportunities to operate as possible, rather than limit the banquet hall and keep the funeral operations operating at the maximum number of events and times in the day. So if there's questions, I'd be happy to speak to that. And I'm sure the applicant is here as a participant as well.
Kelly, could you give us just a little bit of background? So we have seen these joint parking arrangements more in the situation of apartment buildings that didn't have enough parking for those units. And maybe we've had some commercial ones and I'm just not remembering. But as a general proposition, where the joint parking would facilitate a greater intensification, greater improvement of the use of the property, I guess my default would be I want to say yes when we can. The funeral home, obviously, they have to navigate themselves it's in their best interest not to have conflicting events so that they provide adequate parking for their patrons. But I want to, if you just give us a bit of background, because my posture initially is I like to find a way to make this work. Could you speak about what's involved from a staff position in terms of what are the concerns we're trying to address? Maybe that's the way I want to say it.
Sure. So I think for me, there's two kinds of alternative parking schemes that council looks at. One is remote parking, where you're literally saying the spaces in another area satisfy the parking requirement and there's no sharing. And then there's what's proposed tonight, which is essentially sharing of parking spaces. And the decision here is really going to be that we believe and we understand that the two operations are unlikely to cause conflicts. And what we're trying to do is prevent too much demand for too little supply, which then has an undue impact on the surrounding area, whether it's other people's commercial parking lots or on-street parking in the area. And that's why we have parking requirements in the first place, right? Is to minimize or eliminate potential impacts to other properties. So the finding here is that the two operations can coexist and they don't have peak demand at the same time. So we don't do this very often because it's usually kind of hard to say that, a restaurant, they're going to have dining hours that are pretty consistent in the evening hours. So any other use that has an evening use probably couldn't make this finding. A more common example might be like an office use is not open at night. So maybe there is spaces for a restaurant to have their peak demand in the evening. In this case, the banquet hall in some ways has overlap of demand with those early afternoon or evening hours. But the applicant is saying, I'm going to limit those days where that happens. And then staff is saying, I think if the agreement is cleared up to say that the banquet hall understands they can't have an event that would conflict with those days, then we can feel reasonably comfortable that the sharing of parking will work on both properties.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. What happens then if one of the properties is sold, the other isn't?
Yeah, so the way the city structures this is it's an easement that gets recorded, and the agreement has successor and assigns language in it. So it will bind both the owner of parcel 1 as well as the owner of parcel 2 to this arrangement, which is pretty key because the arrangement is really based on the fact that parcel 1 is a funeral home and not some other use. And that parcel 2 is going to be a banquet hall and not some other use. So they're both agreeing to be these uses, whether they're the owner or where they sell it. If the
I see. So if I can interrupt, the use is part of the easement as well, not just the number of parking spots and where they are.
It's key to the analysis because if it was not a funeral home that could manage events in those evening hours or during those daytime hours, it would be hard to make the finding that they wouldn't overlap in demand. So that's a key component of this analysis.
Yes, I understand. That's why we can consider approving it, but you're also saying that we do have, due to the covenants or easements, we do have an ongoing guarantee that analysis will continue to apply even upon sale.
Yes, so the agreement would definitely transfer forward. I think one of the things that's not 100% clear in the agreement is that predication of uses, it describes that in the agreement, that the use is a funeral home and a banquet hall, and that should carry through all of those subsequent sections, and that would follow through, and that needs to be clear in the agreement that it does have to continue in those uses. The agreement does have a clause that if the banquet hall was to cease operating, then parcel 1, the funeral home, could terminate the agreement, which would be fine, because if the banquet hall is not there, it has a very high parking demand. If it's not really a banquet hall, then there's no reason to encumber the funeral home with that burden of having that shared parking spaces.
So a couple more things. First, I agree with Tim that like if we can make this work, I think that I would want to, but I'm also pretty uncomfortable having written materials in front of us for approval right now that diverge so much from what we would actually be approving tonight. So that's a concern. And then, but separately, if I could rephrase some of what you said in my own words, it really sounds like the analysis is symmetric. I mean, earlier we thought it was 12 days on this side, and now we understand it's really 12 days on that side. But otherwise, the constraints are pretty much the same, right? So that's why the analysis feels okay?
Yeah, I think you can say it this way. Yeah, what you described is true. It's just that maybe the benefit of the sharing is more in the favor of the banquet hall and less in the favor of the funeral home. And the way staff kind of couched the proposal on Friday was it's essentially more about the funeral home and a little bit of benefit to the banquet hall. And I think it's flipped as we now understand how the applicant meant for the words in the agreement to be applied.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Other questions?
Kelly, I see a note that says that if there is a problem with parking, the city can revoke this easement. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Which section of the agreement were you looking at there?
It's not in the agreement. It's on page 4 of the staff report in the addendum. It's the last paragraph of the addendum.
I don't see. So what I would say, the agreement doesn't expressly state that. If the parties were operating inconsistent with the agreement and the easement, then I think we would have to take action to seek enforcement upon them. I don't see there's not like a cancellation clause in the agreement where the city can just come in and cancel it.
Okay, that's interesting. So what does it mean when it says the joint use parking plan does allow for the city to require in the future the reevaluation of the parking if there becomes an issue with the required number of parking spaces? That sounds like it's in the agreement somewhere. I didn't see it, but I admittedly was thinking that this wasn't the language we were actually approving. So
I don't, that statement is not expressly in the agreement. And I would say, I would hazard a guess that that's not in, I mean, that kind of would really put someone in a position where you're revoking their business from operating. And the zoning ordinance says these are the number of parking spaces that need to exist and to be available.
think it'd be hard to go back on that determination and say you're inconsistent with the easement if you're following the parameters of the easement, which is the number of days and the hours of use that are described here. If you were doing it different than that, that's where I would say there's an enforcement issue that would come into play.
So if the terms of the easement are not being observed by the two that have agreed, or the two parcels that have agreed to this, the city then has the right to move in further on reconsideration?
I guess I'd have to defer a little bit in consultation with the city attorney. I would see it through the lens of code enforcement of the zoning ordinance, that you're operating your site inconsistent with the conditions of approval. I don't think the agreement itself currently has that kind of language in it. I think it's the zoning ordinance, the general requirements that you have to operate your site consistent with the approval. And when we approve the banquet hall, there will be conditions that tie you back to this agreement that specify you need to operate that way. And if you were not, then we would have code enforcement activities against you. But I don't think the agreement has any kind of reconsideration clause in it.
Kelly, can you go back to the like one of the comments you made with David, and that is, so right now you have a common owner, and you have a funeral home and a banquet hall. In the future, did you say that the agreement will stipulate that it always has to be a funeral home and always has to be a banquet hall, but if the use changes, then this easement becomes null and void? And because I'm thinking about for example, if the funeral home were sold and turned it into a restaurant for sake of discussion or some other use, they may want that parking for more than just 36 hours in a month's time. And 3 hours times 12 times. So then all of a sudden, what happens? And how does that work, or how does staff see that as being? How does that all work out?
So I would say that the way this is structured, again, parcel 1 is giving up rights to benefit parcel 2. Mm-hmm. And that is, again, predicated on the funeral home use. There are other uses where the sharing could work.
Okay.
So I think what would happen is if you were to change to one of those, you would probably need to come back to the city council for your confirmation that it meets the zoning requirements and that use could change without having to change the agreement. If it was something that needed more parking than what we're saying in this situation, it wouldn't be allowed to be on parcel 1. So if you were to go back to a restaurant, that's the best example. The funeral home used to be a pizza parlor, I believe. If it was to be sold and become a restaurant, they would not be able to do that because they wouldn't provide adequate parking on the site, and you would be inconsistent with the findings that approved this agreement. So if you changed it to an office, you could probably make the same findings.
Yeah, but
yeah. And if it was an office, it wouldn't even require anywhere near the number of parking spaces that are on the site. So that's why you'd be able to accommodate it.
So would it be appropriate for there to be that stipulation included in the agreement that would, if the change of use would be occurred or sold to split off separate owners, that there would be, to Gloria's point, a right of, that they have to come back and have it reviewed by the city. They can't change the use. I mean, I'm just trying to think of all of a sudden if inspections all of a sudden finds out gets a permit pulled to the zoning's okay, but then all of a sudden this easement is embedded in there, and then you have to go back and try and enforce the easement. I'm just trying to think from a standpoint of enforcement and consistency.
So we could make it, I mean, I definitely would agree that it could be clearer that the uses are controlled because of this agreement. It's stated in the circumstances and purpose, but I don't necessarily think it's 100% clear that that's meant to carry forward, even though that's how it is all set up at this point in time. whether that's in there or not, it's going to be incumbent on city staff to keep track of records, and the easement does get recorded, and city staff is going to have to maintain that review process internally, whether the language is adjusted or not in the easement, to make sure inspections or building permits aren't issued that are contrary to this. Would be the case with any zoning conformance issue in an existing building, I think.
I think it's a good suggestion. We add that, Mayor, though, into the agreement.
I think it would definitely solidify the basis for why you're doing it.
Well, I think we can certainly open up public comment. I think that the applicant is here, but it just seems there's an awful lot of moving parts and pieces here that staff hasn't had the opportunity to really articulate for council, but that's, I'll defer to, obviously it's a council decision. We'll open up public input. So I believe the applicant, if the applicant wishes to address council, and then also if anybody else wants to address council on this item, they're welcome to do so. Brian, if you want to go ahead and give direction how to do so, and we'll go from there.
I see that Tim has a hand raised.
Okay. Good evening, Tim.
Hi, Mayor.
If you want to introduce yourself, please, and then also your address, and you may proceed.
Yep, Tim Grandin, 414 Lincoln Way and 119 Washington.
Thank you.
Owner of both properties at this time. My goal is that I would allow funeral participants to have a place to go for some type of fellowship, luncheon afterwards, because that's really limited. And there may be other uses on that, but first priority would be funeral. So the same people that were at the funeral would go over to the hall, okay? So you wouldn't be bringing necessarily new people into that, and it would be used 8 to 12 times a month. And I think if I understood what Kelly and I talked about this afternoon, if the property is sold, it's going to have to fit the criteria. If 119 Washington is sold separately from 414 Lincoln Way, it has to fit the criteria of the new zoning issues and go through city staff to be approved anyway. Is that correct, Kelly?
Tim, why don't you go ahead and finish your questions, and then we'll
okay.
Comments, and then we'll let staff go ahead and circle back and answer questions. Yeah.
And then I think, when you look at the overall portion of it, a funeral home isn't an everyday business like that of a gas station or convenience store. Oftentimes there's less than 10 people in the office, and I thought it would be a good merge. That's all I have.
Tim, before you go, could you can you comment on is this a time sensitive decision or not, and if so, why?
Well, I've had bids out since October when I started the process. I contacted individuals, and we have drawings in. It'd be nice to start, but if I get delayed 2 weeks, I guess I get delayed. But, I've been in this process for a long time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Brian, is anybody else that wants to address council on this topic tonight?
Mayor, I do not see any other hands raised.
Thank you. We'll close public comment. Kelly, you want to answer, respond to that, to Tim's question?
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of council's questions there too. So how does monitoring work in the future if it was a change of a tenant? So it would need to respect the zoning, the easement limitations, the parking allocations. We would need to catch that if there was a change of use on the site. The good part about the easement is it gets recorded. There's disclosure. The buyer should understand what they're getting when they buy parcel one. They're not just inheriting a property that has a resolution in a city hall vault that only staff knows about. So it does add that element of disclosure to a buyer. So I think that would get covered. At least notification of that expectation would get covered upon purchase of the property. We're not involved in any purchase of property. I think everybody understands that. It's only if you come in for building permits do we really get involved in the change of use. And uniquely, what you're really looking at tonight is two versions of assembly uses. They're the two uses that typically have the highest parking requirements because you can assemble people in very tight quarters in non-COVID situations.
and have a lot of people on a site. So most reuse of a building would have less parking demand. So that's one benefit here, is that both these buildings could operate independently with the parking that they have on site. It's only when they've heightened their intensity because of assembly uses that they're looking for this shared combination. So there's definitely utility in both sites. If there was a change of use, if there was an office use, if there was a retail use, it's really restaurants and assembly that are probably the complicating factors here.
Any closing comments or questions for Kelly or discussion?
Kelly, for a project like this, do we give notice to the surrounding property owners?
No.
And we haven't received any feedback from any of the other adjoining owners?
No, I'm not sure they could know about it. I mean, they would have to be watching a council agenda to know that that's on the agenda. So the approval, like for example, the banquet hall, it's under review right now. They're in the site plan review process. You just approved the Plata survey to create the lot in March. So they've now in the site plan review process, that's administrative approval. There's never a notice for an administrative approval of a site plan. So there's not really a way for an adjoining property owner to be aware of how this is moving forward.
You know, one other comment I'd like to make. We've been focusing on the parking aspect, which is part of what we have to do. But there's also a human element of this. I think this is really a terrific opportunity for families that are grieving to be able to have an opportunity to share a meal together. Families that have maybe gathered from around the country. I just think this is really a good project. So there are a lot of ways in which I think this is a very terrific project. I'm not committed to waiving because we haven't seen the language. I would like to see this come back, but I think that we can make this happen if we get the language modified.
Now, my sense from the conversation is supports what you just said, Tim. That it sounds like there's support for what's trying to be accomplished. It's more or less it's the details and the agreement and making sure that everyone's all on the same page. So in the future, there's no, well, we meant this, but it wasn't recorded this way, and then a future owner may not understand or interpret it a different way. So anyway, okay, council, is there no further discussion? I'd entertain a motion, give us some kind of direction to staff, and so applicant knows where we're headed.
So it's always difficult to make a motion given just sort of the fluid conversation we've had. Would it be enough direction to move alternative 2 consistent with the priorities that have been articulated by council in the discussion? Is that sufficient guidance, Kelly?
I think the question is, if you want it to return to council, then you would move alternative 2 and direct that it returns to council with updates about the use and the ongoing and the allocation of the parking spaces for council's approval, versus are you actually delegating it to staff to have it modified and then only have the mayor sign it for approval? If you want to bring it back, I think you need to say that as part of alternative 2.
Doesn't alternative 2 say that we approve?
That's why I think you have to say.
Wouldn't it be alternative 4?
I guess you could pick 4. I think that what we just need to understand is if you want the language to come back to council, then that should just be part of the motion, because if that's the case, it's not being approved tonight.
Okay, I'm going to move alternative 2 and consistent with our discussions, and I trust staff and the mayor to make sure that those provisions are included. I think that seems pretty straightforward.
Is there a second?
Tim, you mean not to bring it back to council?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've been very clear about what it is we're wanting to provide. I don't know that bringing it back to council is necessary for something like this. I mean, I'm fine with bringing it back if we're really going to be able to, if there's something new that we need to work through. But if it's just a matter of adding that language consistent, I think our city attorney and Kelly and John can work through that.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
So are we really saying approval contingent upon the revisions being made by staff consistent with what we talked about?
That was what I tried to articulate.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
My concern with this is, first, it makes staff sort of guess somewhat whether council will approve what staff approves. But separately, if in writing the new thing, it turns out that there is an issue, well, it sounds like we've already approved it and asked staff to work it out. And so would staff be able at that point to come back to us saying what's more complicated than we thought?
The way the motion is been structured, it's no. Basically, it's entrusting staff to get it worked out with the attorney and the attorneys.
I mean, I think the other side, David, would be the situation is the applicant wouldn't sign the agreement.
I think the safer thing would be to bring it back to council, but maybe to help the applicant, if we could get this done in a few days, maybe council will agree to a special meeting prior to May, what is it going to be, May 11th, so we could expedite it. That could be a compromise. It'll come back to the council, so you'll see the final document, but a special meeting could expedite it so they won't have to wait all the way to May 11th.
Well, I think I would prefer that. I mean, I have every hope of ending up with something that we can just approve. I think this would be a good thing to be able to work out. I just want to have it feels like there's some moving pieces here, and I like to have the flexibility to make further adjustments or decisions if necessary, only if necessary.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you, David.
As the motion stands right now, that will not be happening. So
understood.
Okay. All right, those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Want to verify is that's Tim and who else? Bronwyn?
Amber.
And Amber. Those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Okay. Motion failed.
Okay, so I'll move to have staff revise the council action form and agreement and bring it back to us, incorporating any relevant analysis pursuant to our discussion today, and any additional ingredients you feel are needed in the agreement. That's the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. David?
And I guess we can talk about a special meeting after this vote. But I'm willing to do that if council's available.
Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carried. In terms of a special meeting, I would be willing to call a special meeting subject to staffing having adequate time and attorneys having adequate time to get their work done as well. And if it's a single item, the key is sometimes it takes time and it's coordinated by schedules. But Kelly, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think the other element is if the site development plan is not ready to be approved, then there isn't necessarily a rush for the agreement. So I think another element of whether to spend the time organizing the meeting is really if the site plan is ready to be issued and we've finished the legal document, then I think it's appropriate to ask council to get back together to try and get this done sooner if that's the situation. To me, I think there's two parts, the legal document and the site plan review process itself.
Well, thank you, Kelly. I think I heard from council they're willing to try and speed this up if that works. And I think we'll defer to you and Steve to work through it. And if it's appropriate, we can do it. Otherwise, if it's within a day or two of the next council meeting, it seems more appropriate to go ahead and just do it on the 11th.
Yeah, and so my motion didn't have a date on it at all, but I was hoping that it would be no later than the 11th.
Right. Yeah. Good. Thanks. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Moving on to item number 42, security cameras in Campus Town. Chief Huff, I believe, is that your item for discussion?
It is. Good evening. As you know, we were before you on December 8th to talk about a revised concept for the Campus Town camera project. So the biggest change in the project over time was originally we anticipated that the cameras would be on ISU fiber and on their system, and then we would request footage when we needed it. However, the Welch Avenue reconstruction project gave us an opportunity to put some conduit in the ground and run our own fiber, which would then allow us to put the cameras on our own network. Some of the advantages to that is there's a savings in money, obviously. There'd be some administrative fees and some server fees with Iowa State, about $2,800 a year that we would save by putting it on our own system. And obviously it would also make it more accessible to us when we needed to see footage in a hurry. There was a concern at the December 8th meeting with a little bit of a change in the concept that we wanted to make sure that, or the council wanted to make sure that ISU student government was still supportive of the project. They had passed resolutions in the past supporting the project, but since there was a change, it was desired that we went back before them to explain the change, and we did that on the 17th of February. And they did have a unanimous resolution on February 24th supporting the project in the new form. So student government was fully on board, understand the safety and security that it might provide. The Campus Town Action Association also previously had been supportive of the project and continued to be even with the change. Additionally, there was a few questions about the policy that would govern the use of the cameras and the recordings. And we answered some staff questions on March 24th, and you should have gotten those to talk about some of the changes in the policy. And I think we cleaned those up. Mostly what it was talking about is the council would have the authority to decide the strategic location for where those cameras may go. And then also who would have access and how we would use those. And so hopefully we were able to answer all those questions. And so at this point, we're back before you tonight to see your feelings.
Trevor, you're also invited to offer any comments. I see you shaking your head in affirmative. So if you have something you wish to add, you're welcome to do so. Council, questions and comments, including Trevor. And Trevor, when I say council, I mean you, because you're also on council as ex officio, okay?
I have a comment and a question. So first, I'd really like to thank council and the police department and the city manager for taking the time to address some of the concerns that I had and the questions that I had. And you did so in a great fashion. You answered questions. You changed the policy in a couple of places. I think the resulting policy is a good one. So I'm really grateful that you're willing to take the time and put in the effort to do that. I think it's an improvement. One of the things I learned in that exchange, I didn't really understand before, was basically the presumption of availability of recorded video, I guess as long as it's not part of an ongoing investigation. So could I ask the chief just to sort of remind us and the public the kind of two different models for how that video can be released?
Sure. So for the police department, any request for public information, it goes through a review process. And what we look at is whether or not using Chapter 22, which is the open records law, we have to apply that to the request and determine whether it is a public record. And the police department has a few different restrictions on confidential records. And so in some cases, we may find that a record is confidential and we can't release it. Juvenile information would be an example of that. But generally speaking, when we get requests that are not related to a criminal investigation, that information could be released, but we always have to review it first just to make sure that it meets the requirements of Chapter 22 and we're not releasing any confidential information or anything that could jeopardize an investigation. And so that's the process that we go through. And that process would be the same for this footage, like body worn cameras, police reports, all of those things all fall within that review that we would do. And hopefully that's what you were asking.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. So I think this is it's a really fascinating side effect. I mean, we have good reason to install a video camera system to promote public safety, but it does have the side effect of sort of being everyone's camera in a way, right? But people can request some of the footage, and they have every right to under the law. So I guess I'm interested in how much uptake that gets. So I might make a motion related to that later, but I think that's outside of the policy. I think the policy you brought to us is great, and so I might circle back around to this later. But that's my thought on this too right now. Thank you.
And the one maybe difference with the proposed security cameras is those are all in public areas versus some of the other information we have aren't necessarily in that public domain. Body worn camera could be in a private residence. Police reports, certainly lots of confidential information in there. So this one is a little bit different in the way that it's designed because anybody would be able to view in real time what's going on in Welch Avenue if they just drive over there and take a look. And so it's all public. So that does make it a little bit different, certainly.
Other questions or comments? Trevor?
Yes, one second, I'm gonna turn off my AC unit, I can't hear. One of the problems living in an old house. I just wanted to echo that student government, when both the meetings that I was in the one where Chief Huff was there to present, and then the one where he passed the resolution, and all of student government was very excited for this and fully supported it. And I think it's a really cool project, and I think that student government will continue to be in support of this in the future, and is happy to work on it.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the shift in terminology away from surveillance to public safety, which I think is really our intent. And that's a much more positive way to view this particular project. So thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Brian, we'll open up public comment.
I do not see any hands raised.
All right, we'll close public input. Council, any closing comments, questions of Chief Huff? Otherwise, I would entertain some motions or a motion.
Move alternative one.
Okay, and just for the record, Tim, would you just clarify what that includes?
Sure. Alternative one is to direct staff to proceed with the installation of the Campus Town security camera system and house the recordings on the city's network and approve the attached policy regarding administration of the camera system and recordings.
Okay. Thank you. If it would be so kind, Tim, and the resolution, we have to have a resolution on adopting the policy, which would be item 1B. So if you're okay, we would split it into two motions. The first one would be alternative 1A. If you're amenable to that procedurally.
Sure.
All right. Questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carried. And then under B, which would be the resolution approving the policy, roll call, please.
Martin.
Aye.
Edie Hansen.
Aye.
Fletcher.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Prairie.
Aye.
Thank you. And David, you had something you wanted to circle back on.
Yeah, so coming back to this open records question, I'd like to know, I think in the future, we'll make further decisions about whether to expand this video system or possibly to add more video systems. And I think it would be helpful to know how much of the use of the video system is really the open record function or the, just the public getting video that didn't exist before versus the public safety function. So, and also this is our first public video system that we're deploying. So I think it makes sense to just sort of recircle back around after about a year to hear how it went and to get some numbers to see how often various things happen. So I'll make a motion to ask staff to come back in about a year after the deployment of the system with a report on how the system has worked, including the approximate total amount of video that was released pursuant to open records requests, and the number of open records requests for video that were actually completed to deliver the video to the requester.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. Discussion? Questions? Tim?
Just to clarify, so I'm in support of the motion. This is, David, you just mentioned something that made me think about this. We actually have cameras already, other public cameras in place, for example, around City Hall, right? And do we have any other cameras besides around that facility?
Which facility?
It's the City Hall Community Center.
Power plants, electric plants, Parks and Rec.
That's right. And so have we received requests for video footage from any of the other cameras?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, thanks.
We actually have had a request for City Hall camera footage it was a civil process. And I think we did fulfill that, but they are very, very, very few and far between, but I am aware of the one.
I wonder if there's utility in us also finding out how often footage was used in a criminal investigation. Simply because if, there are requests that are made, they may not be all that often, but maybe we find that the utility of the system is a positive. So
Would that propose friendly amendment, or is that something you would?
I was just going to say, I would propose that as a friendly amendment, that we get the data on the uses of the camera system for law enforcement activity.
And I guess before you complete that amendment request, Chief, is there any problem from your point of view for in that sort of thing?
No, I believe we could offer a summary of the times maybe the video aided in an investigation. That wouldn't be giving anything away that would be of concern. So I think that's prudent. Obviously, you should know how they're working, and that may aid your decision if you ever want to add anything, or maybe you don't. So that may be useful information for you on how productive they are.
By the way, our new traffic system that Damien's putting together will have cameras in it too, don't forget.
Right, and there was a council motion back when we first discussed that about the video privacy policy associated with those cameras, but I suppose it'll be very similar to whatever we're talking about here.
Right.
Are you amenable to the friendly amendment, David?
Yes, yeah.
Brown, are you amenable to the amendment? Okay. And council, just, every year when our city clerk gives us her annual report, it does include a number of requests for public information, how many were fulfilled. So it sounds like to me as this is really quantity of requests, quantity used for criminal investigation or police investigation, and then just hours of footage. Really, that's what you're looking for, right? That's just the raw data.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, good. All right. Everyone in favor of the motion, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? All right, motion carried. Thank you. Anything else on this item? Very good. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate your report, and look forward to that project moving on. And I think that student government is too, and so is Campus Town Action Association too. That was not mentioned, but they have been very supportive of the businesses there in the Campus Town areas. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 43, resolution approving award of Economic Development Administration grant agreement for Prairie View Industrial Center. Tracy.
Thank you. I just joined in. We are very glad to announce that we have an award of the EDA grant that we've been working on with the Ames Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. And this is for the Prairie View Industrial Park, formerly East Industrial Utilities Extension Project. And the grant award is in the amount of $1.5 million. So the grant would cover the utility install up to what is Teller Avenue, 580th. And then we will have an add alternate on the plans and specifications for extending that on over to the extents for when we bid it prior with going over to 590th Potter Avenue. So if anybody has any questions, I would be glad to answer any. We plan to get plans out for bid hopefully here in May, with bids being received in June.
Thank you, Tracy. Exciting news. Questions for Tracy? Hearing none, entertain public or open up public comment. Brian, on this topic.
Here, I don't see any hands raised.
Close public input. Any further question or any questions? If not, entertain a motion approving award of Economic Development Administration grant agreement in the amount of $1.5 million for the Prairie View Industrial Center utility project.
Move alternative 1.
Martin.
Second.
Edie Hansen. Thank you. Roll call.
Edie Hansen,
Aye.
Betcher,
Aye.
Garten,
Aye.
Junk,
Aye.
Prairie,
Aye.
Martin.
Thank you, Tracy. Look forward to seeing that project moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, item 44, zoning text amendment to establish a new planned unit development overlay within the zoning ordinance, private street standards. Any questions for staff on this particular item this evening? Seeing none, declare the public hearing on this item to be open.
Would you like a motion now?
Oh, no, I got a public hearing first.
I thought we were continuing the public hearing.
Thank you, David. Appreciate the correction. Yes.
I would move to continue the hearing to May 11th.
There a second?
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, David, for, I didn't catch that. All right, item 45. Public hearing on water pollution control facility sludge pumping building improvements. Any questions for staff on this item tonight? Hearing none, declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council?
Do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
Close public hearing. Entertain motion receiving reported bids.
Move.
Bronwyn?
Second.
Gloria, thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Entertain a motion rejecting all bids.
So moved.
Second.
Tim, thank you. And Gloria, thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 46, 2019-2020 concrete pavement improvement program. Any questions for staff on this item tonight? Hearing none, declare the public hearing on the 2019-2020 concrete pavement improvement program, Douglas, 5th Street, East 3rd Street, East 2nd Street, Des Moines Avenue, and Center Avenue to be open.
Mayor, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, declare the public hearing to be closed. Entertain a motion approving plans, specifications, and awarding the contract to Manats Incorporated of Ames, Iowa, in the amount of $1,571,889.43.
So moved.
Gloria, thank you. Rachel, thank you. Roll call.
Betcher,
Aye.
Garten,
Aye.
Junk,
Aye.
Prairie,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Edie Hansen.
Aye.
All right. Next item is a hearing on 2020-2021 Airport Improvement Runway 01/19 and Taxiway A lighting project. Any questions for staff on this project? Seeing none, declare the public hearing on this item to be open.
Mayor, I don't see any hands raised.
All right. Well, close public hearing. Entertain a motion approving plan specifications and awarding contract to Voltmer Inc. from Decorah, Iowa in the amount of $390,399.50, which is base bid plus bid alternate, contingent upon the project being funded by the FAA grant.
Move alternative one.
Second.
Tim and Gloria, thank you. Roll call, please.
Garten,
Aye.
Junk,
Aye.
Prairie,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Edie Hansen,
Aye.
Fletcher.
Aye.
And I'd entertain a motion on approving the grant application to the FAA based on the total estimated project cost of $493,299.50.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Junk,
Aye.
Prairie,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Edie Hansen,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 48. Entertain a motion on second passage of ordinance naming the access road on South Riverside Drive, Aviation Way.
Move on second.
Thank you.
Second.
Gloria, second. Gloria moved, Brown second, and thank you. Roll call.
Prairie,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Edie Hansen,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Garten,
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Thank you. And item 49, entertain motion on third passage and adoption of ordinance number 4437, increasing water rates by 6% effective July 1st, 2021.
Move on third.
Thank you, Brown.
Second.
Second by Garten. Thank you. Roll call.
Martin,
Aye.
Edie Hansen,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Garten,
Aye.
Junk,
Aye.
Prairie.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to disposition of communications to council. We have 7 items tonight. The first item is a letter from Helen F. McRoberts in support of Rose Prairie restoration plan. I understand this is for information if any consideration of that would occur in the future. Same for a letter from Kay Berger dated April 23rd, also communication supporting Rose Prairie restoration plan. Council, do you have any other things you want to deal with those or just accept them for information only? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Number 3, email from Kyle Porman regarding a request for city to study crosswalk concerns on University Boulevard at South 16th Street.
I believe these two are ISU issues, but, well, I don't know exactly where the crosswalk would be. I better be careful.
These two being also the item 4, email from the same individual on a mixed-use trail extension along University at the Iowa State University Recreation Complex.
Yeah, why don't you refer both of those, I guess, for a memo? We can do it at the same time.
Okay. Is there a motion for a request a memo?
Move for memo.
Second.
David and Gloria, thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Item 5, memo from Kelly on a staff response to property owner request to amend the Ames Urban Fringe Plan land use map in Boone County to reclassify portions of the property as rural residential.
Always giving you 2 options there.
It's my understanding that option 1 was right one here. Council can choose to take no action on the request, which will still allow the person to build a single family home. Is there a motion to take no action on this? Is that correct, Steve? I'll make sure I'm not misrepresenting or with this item. Looking at page 2, option 1.
Yeah, it's whether you want to start the process, go through the process and have staff decide or come out with a recommendation on whether to do it or not. I think you can read Kelly's comments on page 3.
So what's so challenging here is that we're sort of in flux with our comprehensive plan. So obviously we don't want to do something that would be inconsistent with this plan. So any thoughts, Steve, as far as how we might proceed then in light of that?
Well, I think Kelly's telling you, I don't think he's going to change the natural area which this is impacted by. I want to hold up on this till we get more clarification on the 2040 plan. How are you, Tim?
So Steve, an appropriate motion on that would be option 1 then, that we take no action? Or are we simply saying we're taking no action at this time?
Once at this time, maybe something will change. The plan clarifies itself to bring it back, right?
I would move we take no action on this item at this time.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carried. Item 6, memo from Kelly on staff response for a waiver of planting authority in the urban fringe.
This is a little bit different because he's analyzing, this is outside of any one of our future plans. You notice that? We still have the waivers in place.
It seems to me to be sort of consistent with the way that land is being used now. It's just kind of a variant of that. So I would move option 1 to place it on a future agenda.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Gloria, thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Last item, memo from Mark Lambert regarding the legal requirements for suspending rules of 3 separate readings at 3 separate council meetings for ordinances. I think Mark makes the recommendation, if you're interested in pursuing this, place it on a future agenda.
So I'm very excited about this. It's going to save us precious seconds during council meetings. But you know, I don't know if we really need to put it on the agenda. I mean, I think that we should just wait until it comes up again, and then Mayor, you know, I'll remind you of this memo, and then you just tell us how to do it when it comes up. I mean, that's my feeling.
Mark, thoughts?
That's fine. I could also, you know, what I was thinking that I could do a follow-up memo with, you know, go through and make recommendations that, you know, this was just motion telling me to write a memo sort of saying what the legal standard is. So I did that. But, you know, it just occurs to me that my thought on what might be the best way might not be what everyone agrees with. So it might be better to have a conversation about it. But, you know, if the council just wants to leave it to, you know, me and you, Mr. Mayor, to just sort of come up with the way that we're going to do it from now on, I think we could do that.
That works for me. So I'm not going to make a motion to do anything.
Okay. That seems amenable. I think that'd be good just to, well, I just kind of wanted to have some council policy handbook of some sort of guide. We could put that in one of the first entries in there so everyone knows what we're going to do and follow. So
Can you name it after me, please?
Pardon me?
That's what you want to be known for, perpetuity?
Better than the ogre.
All right. Okay. Moving on to council comments. Trevor, we'll let you start off and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Trevor Poundstone. I'm currently a junior majoring in management information systems, and I'm from Knoxville, Iowa. As Nicole said, this past year, I was on the other side of the camera, so I know many of your voices. I'm still getting used to your faces now, but I'm super excited to meet and work with all of you moving into the semester. And I know Julia and Megan are also very excited. Just kind of in the position, I'm excited to work on opportunities to enhance Iowa State and City of Ames in the areas of sustainability, mental health, and then diversity and inclusion. And then one thing I wanted to say that I didn't get to say earlier, on the topic of the mental health class and events coming up over the summer, I know student government would be happy to share those on their social media to get more student involvement, because I think students are really struggling with mental health right now, and it'd be a really good opportunity for those that are in Ames. So
I'm curious, what was the motivation besides being on the opposite side of the camera to commit the time that you do and will need to be doing to participate?
Yeah, so the first part of it was back in, I went to Boys State in high school, so I kind of gained an appreciation and interest for local government and then state government from that. And as I was able to go back as a counselor as well and help educate on that. And then moving kind of into like the student government part of it. And this past year I was able to get involved. I was the vice commissioner of the election commission and then currently the clerk of the Senate. And in the clerk position, I found it was really interesting and like cool just to like be able to hear stuff and like be knowledgeable about things that are going on. So I thought this was another great opportunity like that one to be able to know what's going on more in Ames and then being able to provide student input wherever I can. So
thank you. Of course. And council, I was thrilled that our new student government president, Julia, called me and she asked specifically what council will be looking for in terms of a ex officio. And I think they had at least 3 applicants, if not more, that they interviewed. She took it very seriously. Okay. And so we're thrilled that Trevor's on board and looking forward to having your participation in the meetings ahead.
Thank you. I look forward to it too.
Thank you. Amber, any comments tonight?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Gloria.
Well, I want to welcome Trevor and also wish all of the Iowa State students a good finishing to their prep week and finals week, and hope that they can finish strong, hang in there, because I know it's been a really tough semester for all of us. I also want to point out to anyone who is interested that the Ames History Museum lecture series is featuring a lecture tomorrow night on secessionitis, the push for the 4th Ward, which is Campus Town and West, to secede from the city of Ames back in the 19-teens. So if any of you are interested in hearing my husband, Dr. Douglas Biggs, talk about secessionitis tomorrow night, you can find the Zoom link for that by going to the Ames History Museum Facebook page, and the lecture starts at 7 p.m. So you can learn about another political movement that almost created 2 communities out of our one community. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Rylan.
Just a welcome to Trevor, and that's, yeah, nothing else for me.
Thank you. David?
Welcome, Trevor. That's all.
Rachel?
Welcome, Trevor. Excited to get to know you more and work with you to represent students, and that's it.
Tim?
Last Thursday, the NAACP had a Take the Lead forum dealing with sentencing in Iowa, and that video is available on the Facebook site for the Ames chapter of the NAACP. It's an hour program and very worthwhile. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. I think as council's aware, there's a big presentation going on this Friday on the Reinvestment District. Staff and some representatives from AEDC are going down to make the presentation. So wish them well. It'll be interesting to see. Steve, it's my understanding that the award will not be made that day. It's actually happening sometime next month. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted.
That's correct. It won't be made that same day.
Anyway, and congratulations, Public Gloria, to your full professor. Is that right? So just want to recognize your.
I'm a teaching professor, but thank you for recognizing it. The teaching professor is a slightly different breed than the full professor who's got a tenure line. But thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's recognized for your efforts. And I was going to tease you. I was going to say, how do you know so much about the presentation tomorrow night? But you beat me to it by giving us the insights. All right. Very good. Thank you, Council, for a good council meeting tonight, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Rowan. We are adjourned. Have a good rest of the evening, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night.